Hello friends, I am Nisha Sharma, Associate Professor Department of English. The topic that we are going to discuss today is a critical appreciation of T.S. Eliot's Preludes. Since the question is quite a long one, we have divided it into two parts. So this is part 1. Preludes is a poem by T.S. Eliot composed between 1910 and 1911. Preludes is made up of 4 poems written by the modernist poet T.S. Eliot when he was in his early 20s. They were later collected in Eliot's debut, Prufrock and Other Observations in 1917. Broadly speaking, Preludes is about the drudgery, waste, and isolation of modern urban life. The unnamed city in which the poem is set is a grimy, dingy place in which people unthinkingly partake in monotonous daily routines. It is, in turn, literal and impressionistic, exploring the sordid and solitary existences of the spiritually mild as they play out against the backdrop of the drab modern city. In a sense, it is 4 poems rather than one, and it is duly labeled as such. Prelude comes to just 54 lines, and its 4 parts are uneven, irregular, and written in free verse, symptomatic of the speaker's stream of consciousness. Part 1 is 13 lines, Part 2 10, Part 3 15, and Part 4 16. The somewhat abstracted and fragmented description of preludes appears frequently in Eliot's poetry, and although it can be hard to discern the purpose of each individual image, they add up to a whole greater than the sum of its parts. The images in the first stanza of preludes set the context for the rest of the poem. Grimy scraps of withered leaves, newspapers from vacant lots, broken blinds and chimney pots are the dingy, littered concrete objects of the city. In the second stanza, the morning comes to consciousness of faint stale smells of beer, and the narrator thinks of all the hands that are raising dingy shades in 1,000 furnished rooms. The third stanza introduces the first actual character of the poem in the second person. The use of the second person here closes the distance between the poem and the reader. The only redemption in the scene described is found in sunlight and bird song. Light crept up between the shutters, and you heard the sparrows in the gutters. The light is not liberating and illuminating, it creeps and is obstructive. The bird song comes not from a traditional songbird, but from a sparrows in the gutters of the street. The poem has been read as a condemnation of modernity and specifically of urban life. It mainly highlights the bottom of life with allusions to prostitutes and other dirty scenes to further increase the disorienting nature of the world in such a time. Now we'll go through it summary. The winter evening begins to quiet down, signaled by the smell of sticks cooking, which wafts through side streets. It's 6 o'clock. The end of the day is smoky, like the burnt out stubs of used cigarettes, and now the rain and wind blow the dirty scraps of dead leaves around your feet, along with thrown away newspapers blown through empty, undeveloped plots of land. The rain can be heard beating on broken blinds and chimney pots, and at a street corner, there's a lonely cab horse steaming in the cold and stamping its hooves, and when gas powers, street lamps are lit. The morning begins to wakes up with the stale but not too strong smell of beer from the street. The street, which is covered with sawdust, wet, has been trampled by muddy feet rushing to buy an early coffee. along with all the other illusions that daily routine makes people go through again. One is also prompted to think about all the hands pulling up dirty blinds in thousands of furnished rooms all over the city. You threw the blanket off your bed, lay on your bed, and waited for something to happen. You dozed and watched the night reveal thousands of perverted, squalid images, images that in fact make up your soul. They could be seen flickering on your bedroom ceiling. And when you woke up, and the world became familiar again, you could see light peeking through the window shutters, and hear sparrows tweeting in the gutters outside. But at that moment, you experienced a vision of the street which was so strange that even the street could hardly understand it. At the time, you were sitting on the edge of your bed, curling your hair, or perhaps you were holding your yellowing feet in your hands. His soul was spread out tightly across the skies, which could be seen fading as the sun set behind a city cloud. This soul was also trampled by hurrying feet at 4, 5, and 6 o'clock. At these times, one can also see stubby fingers stuffing pipes with tobacco, evening newspapers on sale, and eyes looking around with expressions of self assurance. Beneath all this, the street has a conscience which wants eagerly to come forth into the world. I am moved by the ideas that I have associated with these images, ideas that are difficult to get rid of. Above all, the vague motion of something that is infinitely gentle but which is always suffering. Wipe your hand across your mouth and laugh at the thought of what I have just described. The worlds will go on following their cycles like all women who can be seen collecting fuel in empty, undeveloped plots of land. Now we come to the theme of the poem. First theme is alienation and urban decay. Preludes critiques the alienating effects of modern urban life, something the poem captures, something the poem argues is characterized by drudgery and loneliness. Urban society, the poem suggests, isolates people from one another, ultimately erasing their individuality and even human morality itself. The city in the poem is presented as a filthy, desolate place. There are grimy scraps of withered leaves blowing around, newspapers thrown to the sidewalk, and broken blinds and chimney pots. The street smell of steak, smoke, stale beer, and the shades in people's homes are dingy. The most abundant product of urban life, it seems, is waste and decay. At first, the city also seems abandoned. No people are mentioned, save for the vague reference to your feet. And when people do appear, they are just as dirty and dismal as the city they live in. Their muddy feet trample the ground, their palms are dirty, and their foot soles are yellow, implying disease. It's as if the city itself is passing on a contagion to the people who live in it. Note how the people in preludes also lack any distinguishing features and are instead reduced to their body parts. This highlights the sense of anonymity created by modern life. All these people are living together in this space, but that doesn't make them part of a meaningful community. Instead, the urban world seems to erase their identities, making them into just a bunch of feet and hands. This use of comparison further implies that people are indifferent even from controlling their own bodies, which robotically follow the routines required of modern urban living. People are going through the same motions day after day, opening the blinds, getting coffee, going to work without really thinking about what they are doing. In this way, cities isolate people not just from one another, but also from themselves. That is, from their individual wants, needs, and desires. While the human beings in preludes lack emotion, identity, or agency, the environment itself is personified. Note how the evening settles down and the morning comes to consciousness. This suggests that the emotions that have been drained from the human characters have been transferred instead to their surroundings. It's as if awareness itself is too heavy a burden for modern people to bear and so needs to be carried by something larger. In point 4, this then extends beyond simple consciousness to a moral conscience. The state seems to possess an awareness of morality that human beings in this world have lost. This conscience is further conceived of in religious terms as a soul, which is stretched tight across the sky and which is also trampled by the insistent feet of the city's inhabitants. The decaying atmosphere of the city is therefore a moral sin. City dwellers have trampled this universal soul, which protects them as part of the sky covering the earth. Perhaps this mindless trampling is the reason why, although a new moral conscience is impatient to resume the world, the point ends without any return to morality. Human beings first have to break out of their patterns of behavior, but refuses to do so. Women return to the routine of gathering fuel, and the poem's reader, addressed in the second person, can only laugh. Second theme is the nature of time. Each of the poems within preludes relates the routines taking place in a modern city at a specified time of day. First in the evening, then the morning, then the night, and finally the afternoon. The poems see modern life as being artificially controlled by the clock, which leads to people following unnatural routines day after day instead of living freely and in the moment. Poems 1 and 2 are the most focused on daily routine. Poem 1 is specifically set on a winter evening at 6 o'clock and describes the streets as largely vacant. This poem begins and ends by describing events that happen every day. People cooking dinner and the lighting of gas-powered street lamps. By sandwiching the first poem between these repetitive activities, Eliot stresses the control that clock-based routines have over the lives of city dwellers. This idea is expanded on in point 2, which details morning routines and has numerous echoes of the first poem, such as smell of steak, here it's a smell of beer. The feet of the cab horse stamping, and here the muddy feet going to buy coffee. The lighting of the lamps in the streets in the first prelude, and people raising dingy shades to illuminate rooms in second one. Through these echoes, the speaker stresses the fact that even at different times of day, behavior is repetitive and cyclical, an idea that in turn stresses people's limited freedom in the modern world. However, the second poem also calls this routine a masquerade. A masquerade was originally a formal ball dance in which guests wore masks and took part in dances, whose steps were learned by heart. The repetition necessary to do this is similar to the repetitive routines of modern life described in the preludes. Masquerade can mean a disguise or mask, and as such, further implies that the speaker considers cloak time to be merely an illusion. In other words, the modern notion of time is unnatural and false, created arbitrarily to structure people's lives. This urban routine reaches a peak in poem 4, with 4 and 5 and 6 o'clock compressed together in one line, followed by 3 quick examples of what typically occurs at these times. Men stuff their pipes for a late smoke, evening newspapers are published, and the vague statement, I is assured of certain certainties. However, alongside this intense depiction of clock-based times is the introduction of Christian imagery. The soul is stretched tight across the skies is likely an allusion to Jesus' crucifixion. It ends by drawing a comparison between city routine and an infinite time scale. Worlds revolve like ancient women gathering fuel. This hints at the possibility that in its repetitions, modern life is actually not a huge break from past behavior. Instead, time is cyclical and modern people are actually following ancient universal patterns. This comparison is paired with a bitter laugh, however, and the poem leaves it to the reader to conclude whether this is some profound truth about the nature of time or just a cynical joke about the inevitable suffering of humanity. The other aspects of critical appreciation will be discussed in our next lecture. Till then, thank you.